नहीं मेरे मानना है वापस You're supposed to be one more email ID to me, na? I have now. मुझे लगा कि मेरी दादी आती है ना इधर मैं बस तार पता देख रहा था कि कुछ भी आगे साथ बंद करके मैं आज अभी भी ठीक मेरा क्लास में हमारे नाम का कीवर्ड क्या सिखवा दिया पूरा मजाक किया तो चिढ़ा Good evening. Good evening. Last class, what you were doing? Photosynthesis. So, till where did you reach?
Line reaction. when you finish your 10th, no, please give this book to me. The first thing is once you finish your 10th, you will not remember me only. This book has got a lot of questions. It's very good. So, last class I asked you some diagram-based question to do, no? No, I did not ask you. So let us complete some questions from the first part of the chapter that we have finished. We have finished what? We have finished with. Only that much. Like the exam page we have finished. And now we are going to study those theories. Let us finish that. So what did we study so far about the process? It makes a lot of noise and then इसका आवाज बहुत बड़ा है काम कुछ नहीं जब तुम 10th कंप्लीट करोगे ना यहाँ से then you will remember all these things. So are you going to miss your school?
Yes.
No?
Yes.
इसमें no बोला. इसमें no बोला. इसमें no बोला. You are going to continue in the same school for 12? No? No? Both are no? No? क्यों? अच्छा, for ICSE it becomes but CBSE 12th is there in your school? No.
CBSE.
And for you all the rest, what plans? Just 2 minutes. अब पढ़ते पढ़ते बोर मैं भी पढ़ाते बोर हो जाती हूँ. सब 4:30 बजे तक पढ़ा. After 10th, what? No plans? No plans? Huh?
11 and 12 in old school. In Pune.
पुणे जा रहे हो तुम? और निहाली और प्रशंसा को भी लेके जा रहे हैं साथ में. Prashant, what plans after 10th? So, what plans after 10th?
Science line.
Very good.
Software engineering.
अरे वाह, ये है सुपर. अभी 10th में भी सोचना है कि क्या करना है. हाँ? 10th में बस ऐसे आराम से आना जाना. पेरेंट्स सोचेंगे तुम्हारे लिए कि तुमको सोचना है. Today you all are so smart. You already. Hello. 10th के बाद क्या करना है?
Law और IT.
हाँ?
Law और IT.
अरे वाह, very good. Very good. 10th में सोचो क्या करना है. This is the time. पढ़ाई के साथ साथ look into certain avenues जो तुम्हें अच्छा लगे. जो तुम्हें अच्छा लगे, what you like, your likings, and हमेशा खाली liking भी नहीं देखते, to be practical. I like drawing and painting. Drawing painting में इंडिया में कोई future ही नहीं है. So that also you have to think. But today you all are so smart. अभी से थोड़ा planning करो. I want to go to this college. मुझे ये वाले university में पढ़ना है. So मुझे कितना percentage मिलना चाहिए? How much I should go? How much I should get? No. Like when you go to for a movie or when you have to plan for a movie, you already plan में कौन सा movie देखना है, कौन से theater में जाना है, हाँ? और कोई friend के birthday पार्टी कौन सा dress हो तो 1 महीने पहले से plan कौन सा dress पहनना है. So for everything you have to, for your life now you have to plan. Or today you already know so many things. So अभी plan करो and accordingly if you have a goal then only you will run, no? Goal ही नहीं तो भागोगे किसके लिए? So have a goal, set a goal for yourself. And the dream and the goal should be small or big? Big. पहुंचो नहीं पहुंचो वो बात की बात है ना? And always remember you have the food that just now I was seeing one girl crying there. The parent is so worried. Should your parents be worried about your exams or your studies? They have already so many things to worry about. No? So now you are big enough to handle yourself, your exams, your school, your etc. etc. Do good. Always, हर एक exam में अच्छा करो. Keep reading, studying. But at the same time, you should have enough time for friends and play and relax. पढ़ते पढ़ते बोर मत हो जाओ. And अपने आप को भी बोरिंग मत बनाओ और आसपास के लोगों को भी बोर नहीं करो. Always be very interesting, learn extra, read extra. How many of you plan your day? Do you have a particular setup for the day कि कभी भी उठे, कभी भी चले, कभी भी खाए, कभी भी सोए? Particular setup, you have particular timetable or particular, I don't call it as a timetable. Do you have a proper time management for the day? है कि नहीं?
Yes.
नहीं, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. है? झूठ मत बोलो.
Yes,
हाँ बोलो. I want to
I
hear.
just keep one goal, so I have to read this.
Nee, what is your everyday goal? I just take 5 minutes. And that's not a waste of time. Don't worry. We'll finish the chapter. Goal क्या है? Everyday का goal क्या है?
2 chapters every day.
झूठ.
Yes.
2 चैप्टर एक दिन में आईसीएसई का कभी भी खत्म नहीं होगा. होता है क्या? हो भी जाता है. अच्छा, होता है तो बहुत अच्छी बात है. राधिका, हर दिन का क्या रहता है तुम्हारा? Every day time management. What is it? What do you plan every day?
Complete the homework and then revise what is done at the school and
The day you are not done with any of your work, how do you feel? Not good, no? These are the sign of a good student. The day you are not able to fruitfully finish something, how do you feel? निहारी अच्छा लगता है जब सोने जाते हो रात को? अच्छा नहीं लगता है? हाँ?
I keep thinking about it.
You keep thinking about it. Today's day is a waste. No? ऐसा लगता है कि नहीं लगता है?
No, I never keep it. I'll study it together but I'll complete.
अच्छा, अपने आप को इतना भी स्ट्रेस मत करो. 10th में मतलब you are still small. अभी भी तुम बच्चे ही हो. In the long run, when we think about the long run, maybe you are just at the start. Set a goal for yourself every day. कि आज मुझे इतना खत्म करना है. But for that you don't keep on slogging after school से आके ही लग जाना है. Not that. Relax, keep time. When you manage your time, you give time for everything. But school से आए and then you are relaxing 4 घंटे तक relax ही कर रहे हो and then 9 बजे मम्मी थोड़ी पीछे कि पढ़ने बैठो then बस ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए. Now you are smart kids, you already know what to do. Then you get enough time for play, you get enough time for your some favorite shows if you have, some favorite games if you have, some favorite activities that you all want to do every day. So plan it up. 10th standard, not to panic. 10th standard कोई panic वाला situation कुछ नहीं है. अगर you are regular about your studies every day थोड़ा थोड़ा करते चलो, revise करते चलो, आगे पढ़ते चलो. There is nothing to worry. ठीक है? Take it easy. Enjoy your life. Enjoy your life also. All of you have good friends. You should have good friends. Do you talk with your parents? Do you share with your parents? So that way you will develop and mature. Understand? कोई panic नहीं है, कोई tension नहीं लेना है. In the 10th standard, half of the children because of panic. Now see, 10th ICC के results पता है this year? You got to see, some of them who had done so good. Are these those children जिसके पीछे parents लाठी देके पड़े थे पीछे पढ़ने के लिए? Students who are already able to manage, you all are able to do this. All of you are able to do this. Okay? Now is the time when you make yourself understand that मैं भी कर सकती हूँ. You also can do it. if anybody told you anything, वो believe ही नहीं करना है. You believe in yourself. मुझे भी, I also have the potential. I also can do it. Programmed way में चलो. We already studied all these. Now we are going to start with this concept of the sugar concentration theories. Now, what are we studying now? We are going to study now. The last class we had already finished with the light and the dark phase, no? The chemical reactions we studied. Now we are going to study that regulation of opening of stomata. Regulation of opening and closing of stomata. Regulation of opening and closing of stomata. Now, why are we talking about regulation of the opening and closing of the stomata? To understand the process of photosynthesis, is stomata essential? Yes. When we are talking about the process of photosynthesis, we very much understand that the lower layer of the leaf, that means the lower epidermis, has got those fine pores known as the stomata. सबसे important function क्या है stomata? Diffusion of carbon dioxide. Is carbon dioxide a primary need for the process of photosynthesis? Yes. Carbon dioxide is the primary need. So that is the context why we are talking about this. We are saying that regulation of opening and closing of the stomata. That means I am talking about the epidermis layer. I am talking about the epidermis layer, and we already know that if you have to talk about the epidermis layer, the lower layer of epidermis, they have got what? They have got this guard cells. Arrangement of the guard cells, something like this. And then the carbon dioxide should enter into the deeper layers to come in contact with the mesophyll cells. Why? But because the mesophyll cells are rich in chloroplasts. All these things we learned the other day. We now try to understand that if the stomata is open for a long duration of the day, is it favorable for the plant? Favorable for the leaf? Yes, because if it is open, the inward diffusion of carbon dioxide can happen. And if the inward diffusion of the carbon dioxide can happen, the process of photosynthesis will continue. No? So we are going to understand here two theories which explain that how does the stomata open? Why does the stomata open? So two theories, what are those two theories we are going to understand? We are going to understand first of all the sugar concentration theory and the potassium ion theory. The first one, the sugar concentration theory. The sugar concentration theory. Try to understand the steps that I explain you now. So when I talk about the sugar concentration theory, what is happening here? In the sugar concentration theory, first of all, I understand that if this is the stomata, stomata has what? A pair of guard cells. Inside the guard cells, the vacuole, it's a plant cell. Inside the guard cells, the vacuole. What else? The guard cells have got chloroplasts. What am I drawing? These are the chloroplasts. But before that, let me also draw that surrounding the guard cells, there are some other groups of cells this way. There are some other groups of cells. These cells also have got some names. We may talk about the epidermal cells are there, and the subsidiary cells are there. There are some layers of cells. So let me just name some of this. So first of all, I'm talking about the epidermal cells. And what about this one? This is the guard cell. And then what next? I talk about this as the chloroplast. Now let us try to understand some relation. But surrounding this surrounding this, see here, surrounding this, when I talk about surrounding this guard cells, when I talk about, I also understand surrounding this group of guard cells and the epidermal cells, there is also some arrangement of cells, and this arrangement of cells is what we are talking about as the xylem. This arrangement of cells is what we are talking about as the xylem. And this xylem, of course, will remain in connection with the xylem of the root. So let us try to talk about a relation this way. So now, when I say that how are these cells getting the water? Of course, by this root. From the soil they're getting the water by this root. So you can also understand that wherever the stomata is there, surrounding the stomata, close to the stomata, there will be an arrangement of cells known as a xylem. And the function of the xylem you already know. Now related to that, here we understand that this chloroplast, what is its role? The chloroplast undergoes the process of photosynthesis. Chloroplast undergoes the process of photosynthesis. If it undergoes the process of photosynthesis, what is it able to make? Glucose, organic food. It is able to make glucose. Then what will be the fate of this glucose? This glucose molecules, which I draw this way, these glucose molecules that are getting formed in the cytoplasm, what will happen to the glucose molecules? Slowly, they will start getting dissolved in the sap. The glucose is getting dissolved in the sap. After some time, this glucose which is getting dissolved in the sap, is it not making the sap concentrated? Yes, the sap is now concentrated as compared to before. So which word we are going to use for the sap now? Hypertonic. The sap is hypertonic. The sap is hypertonic. Now that the sap is hypertonic, next what? Now that the sap is hypertonic, next what?
The guard cell become turgid. Water will enter the guard cells.
Now that the sap is hypertonic, now next what? अब जब ये sap hypertonic हो गया है, what will be the tendency of this guard cell? Withdraw water, take water from the surrounding epidermal cells. So I would say, because it is hypertonic, it is allowing or engaging in the process of endosmosis. Endosmosis हो रहा है. अब endosmosis क्यों हो रहा है? Why is the guard cell constantly taking water from the surrounding cell? Because this cell is having sap जो dilute है, क्योंकि इसमें तो photosynthesis नहीं हो रहा है. This epidermal cell, is it undergoing photosynthesis? No, because it does not have chloroplast. And इसमें the sap is gradually becoming concentrated because the process of photosynthesis is on. So now this is becoming hypertonic and this is constantly dragging water from the surrounding cell, a process known as endosmosis. अब ये process अगर थोड़ा देर continue होगा, then what will be the characteristic of the guard cell? It will become turgid. It will become turgid. Now the guard cell is turgid. Now that the guard cell is turgid, next what? What is the meaning of the word turgid? A condition when the cell is gradually becoming filled with water, is tainted with water, and after some time the cell is not able to take any more water. That's the condition that we understand as turgid, no? The cell is not able to take any more water. So under that condition, what is happening is, ये जो guard cell है, this is constantly becoming bent. ये जो guard cell है, this is constantly becoming bent. ये जो guard cell है, this is constantly becoming bent, pushing the epidermal cells, constantly becoming bent. What about the inner lining? The inner lining slowly goes inside, and the inner lining, though it is comparatively thicker, it goes inside. What about the outer lining? Again, I draw this side also. It is getting bent. It is getting curved more than before. It is getting curved more than before. And what about the inner lining? The inner lining is also pushed inside. The inner lining is also pushed inside this way. The opening between the two guard cells that we call it as stroma. The stroma, is the stroma getting wider than before? Yes, the stroma is getting wider than before. So now guard cell becoming turgid, and then next is the stroma is wider. And this is what is happening during the daytime. And this is what we call it as opening of stomata or open stomata. Abhi, what are we trying to understand? The sugar concentration theory में हमें क्या समझ में आया? Sugar concentration theory explains that because of the buildup of the sugar, glucose, in the guard cells and the gradual solubility in the sap, the presence or the accumulation of the sugar is actually allowing the opening of the stomata. Accumulation of the sugar is actually allowing accumulation of the glucose is actually allowing the opening of the stomata, and hence the process of photosynthesis is been happening, allowed, no? So this is one concept. But now, instead of the sugar concentration theory, if I have to explain the potassium ion concentration theory, then how is it different? Here the difference is, again I talk about the previous condition of the guard cells and the stomata, something like this. I talk about the condition of the guard cells and the stomata, something this way, where the guard cell was not that much opened up, no? And this is the thick line that I'm drawing, where the guard cell probably was quite less turgid this way. The guard cell was less turgid this way. So in this case, if I have to explain the potassium ion theory, the difference only is, yes, the guard cells have got the chloroplast and that's the reason they are favorable for the process of photosynthesis. Glucose is formed. Here the difference is that here the focus is not on glucose. Here they say that photosynthesis is a process which builds up glucose, but not only that it requires, not only that it builds up glucose, but for the process of photosynthesis, adequate amount of potassium ions are necessary. Now, why potassium ions are necessary? Let me just write it this way, rather. It becomes clear for you. So, for the process of photosynthesis, what happens? ATP has to be formed. ATP has to be formed. Now, for the process of formation of ATP, potassium ions are absorbed or picked up from surrounding cells. From the surrounding cells. So here first they say that since in this cell the process of photosynthesis is happening, first of all, what are these guard cells doing is they are picking up more and more potassium ions from the surrounding cells. क्यों? क्योंकि guard cells में ATP बनना है, photosynthesis होना है अभी यहाँ पे. So first of all, they are picking up more and more potassium ions. First of all, they are picking up more and more potassium ions. Now they are picking up more and more potassium ions. What is happening? Of course, here also, hypertonicity is getting developed here. Here also hypertonicity is developed, but the hypertonicity is not because of glucose, they are saying. They are saying that the hypertonicity is not because of glucose, but because of the picking up of the potassium ions. And now since the hypertonicity is developed, then endosmosis. Now because hypertonicity, then endosmosis. And if now endosmosis, then turgidity, the turgid condition of the guard cells, the turgid guard cells, and if now the turgid guard cells, then the open stomata or the open stomata. So here the theory is a little bit different that you have to understand. What is the basic difference that we are talking about here? That in each of these cases, what are we trying to understand? If it is a concept of glucose concentration theory, the focus is only on the glucose, where the glucose is responsible for the endosmosis. And if you are talking about the potassium ions, the focus is on the potassium ions and not exactly on the glucose. And the process of endosmosis is majorly because of the picking up of the potassium ions which are necessary for the formation of ATP. I understand? This is majorly an accessible concept that we understand. That yes, during the process of photosynthesis, ATP is always required in potassium ions also. So, jitna potassium ion pick up hota hai, more than that, water also has to come into the guard cells. Okay? So, these are the two theories that you have to study. After the theories, we had already talked about this, the light and the dark phase. After the theories, now next let us move on to the adaptations and the factors. Now, adaptations and the factors. I just go to the factor graphs, right? Now, next is factors. Now, next let us talk about. Okay, so we are already done with the theories. Now, after the theory, we are going to do that is we have finished. Okay. So light phase, then we continue with that again. So after the light phase, what were those reactions? What were those reactions we had written down? Do you remember? For light phase, let me continue from here, otherwise you do not understand. Now, light phase के लिए what were those steps? We said activation of chlorophyll था ना? I'll write in short. Activation of chlorophyll. Okay. Then after activation of chlorophyll, what did we say? Photolysis. Okay, photolysis was there. The photolysis where what did we understand? Water and then hydrogen, electrons, oxygen. Then what was the third step? Reduction of NADP. And what did we understand here? NADP plus hydrogen plus electrons results in the formation of NADPH. H2, okay. Next is we are talking about what is this step called? Photophosphorylation. Photophosphorylation. So now that we are talking about photophosphorylation, what was happening here? ATP was getting formed. No, ATP was getting formed. Adenosine triphosphate. Now you have all the products of the right reaction. Let us study. Of course, dark reaction steps actually we are not studying. It's not there in the syllabus. We are only studying the skeletal reaction. Remember, where does dark reaction happen? Where does dark reaction happen? Now we have to talk about dark reaction. Dark reaction is also known as biosynthetic phase or Calvin cycle. Biosynthetic phase or Calvin cycle. Biosynthetic phase only because in this reaction, after a lot of, in this phase, after a set of reactions, we come across formation of glucose. Dark reaction, also known as Calvin cycle. Now, इसमें सबसे important ये है कि when we are talking about RUBP, as I said, we are not studying all the reactions. We are only talking about as per your syllabus, a basic skeletal reaction ही पढ़ रहे हैं हम. We are not talking about the steps, sequential steps. RUBP is a component. RUBP is a acceptor. It's a chemical component which is present in the stroma, which readily starts reacting with carbon dioxide. Up tak, carbon dioxide was not been used, neither broken down. When we study the concept of light reaction has nothing to do with carbon dioxide. So this carbon dioxide is utilized in the stroma. So if I have to understand dark reaction, where is this reaction happening? This reaction is happening in the stroma, remember. One more thing to understand, this dark reaction, is it dependent on any intensity of sunlight? Nothing. Dark reaction is happening now also. Dark reaction may happen at 12 o'clock at night also, or early morning 2 o'clock also. Because dark reaction, as long as these products are there in the cells of the lead ambient adequate, process will go on. This product over, process will stop. Intensity of sunlight has nothing to do there. So now, when we are talking about dark reaction, I first start with this RUBP. What is it? Ribulose biphosphate. Ribulose biphosphate. Actually, it is also called bisphosphate. Ribulose biphosphate. What is it? It is a carbon dioxide acceptor. In the entire concept of biochemistry, whenever we study, there are certain compounds, certain molecules which start reacting with certain molecules very readily. So now, in chemistry also you must have studied about all these concepts. So now when we are talking about this, RUBP readily starts reacting with carbon dioxide. Starts reacting with carbon dioxide. And now we talk about what else? Hydrogen ions are involved, electrons are involved. Should we talk about the role of oxygen here? No, oxygen is not at all involved here. Oxygen, whatever is released, is no more a part of the dark reaction at all. Then what else? We talk about NADPH2, we talk about ATP, and these results, first of all, in the formation of glucose. This results in the formation of glucose. What else? We talk about results in the formation of glucose and then NADP again, and then ATP and PI again. Okay? So now we are talking about just a basic concept to understand that in the dark reaction, what is happening? Dark reaction, we are understanding reduction of carbon dioxide to form carbohydrate. Reduction of carbon dioxide to form carbohydrate. Carbohydrate is getting formed by the reaction of carbon dioxide with all the products of like reaction, where this component or this particular molecule also plays an important role, RUBP, and the enzyme which has been used here is, or in the presence of an enzyme, that we can write it as rubisco. Rubisco. This is a enzyme complex. Enzyme complex. Now, what are enzymes? You already know. Enzymes always fast in the process of breakdown. Enzymes always fast in the process of polymerization of molecules, etc., etc. No? So for dark reaction, this basic thing only you'll have to remember. वैसे तो ये सारे step by step we can understand. There are almost about 9-10 steps to understand when we talk about the process of Calvin cycle. That much we are not studying right now. Only this you have to understand. What is exactly happening then in dark reaction? Where is it happening? In the stroma, basically a step known as reduction of carbon dioxide to form carbohydrate. अब ये carbohydrate जो बना है, I already told you the other day. अब जब ये glucose बना है, what are the two fates of this glucose? This glucose will go through two processes. किसको याद है बता? What are the two processes? One is
translocation.
Translocation. What is the other?
Storing of starch.
Polymerization. Polymerization. What was translocation? Distribution of food acid भी लिखोगे क्या लिखा है? What is translocation? याद है? कौन बताएगा? Translocation क्या बोला था मैंने पिछले दिन? When I explained the overall chemical equation, there was I explained the raw materials and products. There only I already explained you that side. Translocation, what was it? The distribution of the glucose in the form of, in the soluble form known as sucrose by phloem. Phloem. By the phloem. That is called translocation. Then what is this? Polymerization is what?
Transformation of
Storing of the excess glucose in the form of starch in the plant parts. So that is polymerization. So this is about the dark reaction, and this is about the product that you get. And the fate of the product. The fate of the product, already I explained to you this. Now, when we are talking about what is the role of oxygen, that also we had discussed already. Now let us talk about adaptation. Look into your page there. Fatafa will run through those characters. We'll run through those characters, adaptations. Adaptation. When we are talking about adaptation, some of these, let us go through adaptations. Look into your book, some extra also maybe there. The first part I go by your book only, the first part, the large surface area. What are we trying to understand here? Adaptation, मतलब क्या पढ़ रहे हैं हम? We are trying to understand the concept of adaptation, that which are some of the characteristics of the leaf. What are some of the arrangement of the leaf, characteristics of the leaf that can enhance or decrease the rate of photosynthesis? So adaptations matlab special arrangement of the leaf in a plant, in a geographical region, no? Let us start with the first one. Large surface area. What do you understand by that? Large surface area matlab a leaf is there. I talk about, tell me if I talk about a leaf, something like the people leaves. You have seen, no, the people leaves? People plant के leaves देखा ना? बड़े होते हैं. And comparatively, I talk about the mango. Mango leaves a little bit narrow होता है, and a little bit they are not open up straight. You know, they are a little bit slightly closed sort of a leaf. No, they are a little bit there. Which leaf is supposed to have a higher rate of photosynthesis? The mango or the people? Because the people is just like a sheet of paper, spread out. Spread out it is. So large surface area, very simple to understand. If the exposed surface is more, the rate of photosynthesis is more. Number 2, leaf arrangement. Leaf arrangement. Are the arrangement of the leaves in every plant the same? No. In some plants we come across, if this is the stem, alternately the leaves are arranged. If this is a particular plant, I understand alternately the leaves are arranged. यहाँ पे एक है, यहाँ पे एक है, यहाँ पे एक है, तो यहाँ पे एक है, no? A common type of arrangement. In certain plants we come across that the leaves are in a cluster. The leaves are in a cluster. Some are downward, some are up this way. The leaves are in a cluster. So which sort of leaves are supposed to have a higher rate? Which plant is supposed to have a higher rate of photosynthesis? इसमें कि इसमें जहाँ पे यहाँ पे the leaves are always in a bunch. एक bunch में है, the leaves are always in a bunch. Some downward, some in the center. See, some plants will be, if you have noticed, some plants have got even arrangement of the leaves. Some plants don't. कभी-कभार some plants will have clusters of leaves at every node. No cluster में leaves होता है. So if I show you something like this, apparently, what do you feel? यहाँ पे rate of photosynthesis ज़्यादा है कि यहाँ पे? इसमें? Okay, I'm name it as A and B. किसमें? B में. Explain करो राधिका. They are at
right angle.
They are at right angles. This one, no, I have not shown you only the right angle arrangement here. Here I am showing you first of all when the leaves are in a cluster. So यहाँ पे if they are in a cluster, some of the leaves which are downwards, are they getting or are they exposed to sunlight? They are not majorly exposed to sunlight. यहाँ पे they are majorly exposed to sunlight. Sometimes we come across right angles. Now that's the most appropriate arrangement of the leaf to show a higher rate of photosynthesis. Now what is the meaning of right angles? This is the stem. From here one set of leaves. Again from here one set of leaves. Again from the next, meaning from ये वाला अगर एक node है, यहाँ से one set of leaves coming up. Second node ये है, some leaves are moving upwards. यहाँ से एक और leaf है, horizontal. यहाँ से एक और node है, little bit upward. So in that case, what's happening? That leaves which are downwards, still they are getting adequate amount of sunlight. Because the leaves which are upper, they are not horizontal and not covering the leaves below. They are not covering the leaves below. Just think, यहाँ पे leaves है horizontal, यहाँ पे भी leaves है horizontal. These leaves are covering the next layer, no? ये first layer of leaves they are covering the next layer, no? So if that is what it is, then this second layer of leaves or the lower layer of leaves will always have a lower rate of photosynthesis. But certain plants, अगर ये एक node है, यहाँ पे leaves horizontal इस तरह से आ रहा है. यहाँ पे अगर दूसरा node है, from here the leaves are little bit upwards. So ये जो lower layer के leaves है, they are still getting adequate amount of sunlight. So the arrangement, if they are in right angle, that's the most appropriate. If the leaves are in right angles, then the plant generally has a very high rate of photosynthesis. If the plants are this way, then also comparatively more than this if they are in a bunch. If the leaves are in a bunch, comparatively lesser. Come to the next one. Cuticle and upper epidermis. What is cuticle? This is the upper surface that we know as cuticle. Cuticle and upper epidermis. If I talk about what is cuticle, always try again understand that cuticle is actually not a cellular layer. What is cuticle? It is just a waxy coat that the epidermis produces. So now just tell me that when I talk about the cuticle, say suppose I am talking about the tulsi leaves, and I am talking about the mango leaves. किसमें rate of photosynthesis ज़्यादा होना चाहिए? अच्छा, mango. No, that may not be an appropriate. Okay, I talk about the money plant leaves and the small mango leaves, almost of the same size. हाँ, किसमें ज़्यादा होना चाहिए? Money plant कि mango?
Leaves are of same amount.
Same size same ही है, surface area same ही है, but one is the money plant and the other is the mango. इसमें तुमको ये सोचना है कि which has got a thicker coat of cuticle. Thicker coat cuticle किसमें है? Thicker coat cuticle. How do we understand? By looking at the leaf. Are we able to understand whether the leaf has a higher? तो क्या समझ में आता है? Now that we are talking about the leaf, yes, we can understand by seeing the leaf whether it is more shinier or not. If a leaf, now talk about the mango, it is quite as if it is polished, no? Did you see the surface of the mango leaf? There's like polish of that, and on a bright sunny day, it shows that shine also, because it has got a thick layer of cuticle. But the tulsi leaves, if you ever see the shine on the tulsi leaf, it is very, very dull always. क्योंकि cuticle कम है, बहुत thin है. So if the layer of cuticle is thick, and thin say, how will the rate of photosynthesis differ?
So the layer of cuticle is thick. There will be less
Photosynthesis. Why? Because the sunlight penetrating is comparatively lesser. If I talk about the aloe vera, even thicker. No? So when I compare mango, aloe vera, mango has more. Why? Because the cuticle layer, the thinner it is, the better probably. The thicker it is, sunlight has to penetrate, and then enter which group of cells to undergo the process of photosynthesis? Mesophyll. तो ये जो है thicker cuticle, उसके बाद mesophyll में पहुंचना है. No? Come to the next one. We got numerous stomata. That's very simple to understand. Numerous stomata. Is it necessary that a particular leaf, if I talk about 1 square millimeter area, 1 square millimeter area of the people and the mango and the money plant, should they have the same number of stomata? No. So it is very obvious the number of stomata more, meaning more photosynthesis. How? Inward diffusion of carbon dioxide. So that is very simple to understand. And then next is we talk about the thinness of the leaf again. Thinness of the leaf. What to understand by the concept of thinness of the leaf? I talk about the upper epidermis and I talk about the lower epidermis. In certain leaf, between the upper and the lower epidermis, there may be something around 3-4 layers of cells. Something around 3-4 layers of cells. So here between the upper epidermis and the lower epidermis, there are around 4 layers of cells. Some plants may have almost about 6-7 layers of cells. So which should be having a higher rate of photosynthesis, the one with 4 layers or the one with 6 layers of cells? 4 layers. Kyun?
Easy transport of
So that the sunlight is able to transport into the deeper layers of the cells. If the thickness is more in the lower spongy mesophyll, the sunlight is not reaching. Never mind, we understand that the spongy mesophyll has got a lesser number of chloroplasts, but still they are having, no, they are capable of undergoing the process of photosynthesis. So if the layers of the cells are more, in the last few layers of spongy mesophyll, the sunlight does not reach. In the guard cells, in the lower epidermis, guard cells are there, no? In the guard cells, the sunlight does not reach. So there are so many layers of cells which are deprived of photosynthesis. They are not able to show the process of photosynthesis. Layers of cells. Chloroplast. How can chloroplast be a adaptation to regulate or bring about an decrease in the rate of photosynthesis?
more chloroplast,
More photosynthesis. Very simple. More chloroplast, more photosynthesis. It's not so. What is the average number of chloroplasts per cell?
40 to 50.
40 to 50 on an average. So, is it the same in every plant? No. In certain plants we come across, there are some plants which has got much lower count of photosynthesis. Chloroplasts per cell. And extensive vein system. Now let me see who gets this. Extensive vein system से rate of photosynthesis का क्या link हो सकता है? Water supply. Vein system. When I talk about extensive vein system, chalo, now I'm talking about one leaf this way, and I'm talking about another leaf. Which is something like this, which has got reticulate venation. Perhaps you have studied all these. Reticulate venation, and this is parallel venation. तो किसमें rate of photosynthesis ज़्यादा होगा? Reticulate में, because every cell is getting adequate amounts of water, and that also in a short period of time. Something like the mango, parallel venation है ना mango में, where the number of veins on the veinlets are few, but mesophyll cells तो काफी सारे हैं. So the amount of water to reach the cells and carry out the process of इसमें time भी लग रहा है, and if the environmental factors are fluctuating, the process of photosynthesis would be lesser, comparatively lesser. Any doubt in these factors, adaptations? I'm sorry. कुछ भी doubt है इसमें? देखो एक बार. Now we have to talk about the factors. Now this is very, very important. Factors. Let us study these factors. What are the factors necessary for the process of photosynthesis? Factors necessary for process of photosynthesis. Now we are trying to understand that the factors, internal factors, external factors. First of all, I'm going to take up external factors. External factors that regulate the rate of the process. What are some of the most important ones? The first that we are going to talk about is carbon dioxide and light intensity. Carbon dioxide and light intensity. So here what is happening, if you remember, I already told you that when we are talking about the rate of photosynthesis, is the rate of photosynthesis dependent on the intensity of light? Dependent on the intensity of the light it is? Yes. But why is it dependent on the intensity of light? What is the most important reason that we can cite to explain that when we are talking about the rate of photosynthesis, why the rate of photosynthesis is very much dependent on intensity of sunlight? The reason is chlorophyll. Chlorophyll. No, this already we had studied the other day. So let us understand this way. So what is happening is we talk about that at the start of the day. Now let me just understand the rate of the process. The rate of the process and the light intensity. Oh, I'm sorry. The light intensity and the rate of the process. So now, when we are talking about the light intensity and the rate of the process, what are we understanding? That with the increase in the light intensity, the rate of the process is increasing. I may understand that at the start of the day, something around say 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, the process has started. We already understand now what the reason is. But after a particular period of time, we get to see that there is no change in the rate of the process and the rate of the process becomes stable. The process of photosynthesis becomes stable. That may be considered as the saturation state. But now, as I said, again I repeat, I said that whenever we are talking about that the rate of the process is very much related with the light intensity. Once a particular light intensity is reached, and now the rate of the process speeds up, picks up. But why does it stop after a particular period of time, even though there is an increase in the light intensity? Even though there is an increase in the light intensity, why does it change? Now, I'm sorry, why does not it change? So I said that whenever we have to talk about, no, I think I'm making a mistake. Yeah, I should take the rate, no? It was correct? Achha. So what I said is that when we are talking about that increase in the light intensity, first of all, the rate is increasing. But after a particular period of time, just try to understand this way. That maybe now from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, the process has run very nicely. But after some time, now the day is progressing. Now it is almost about 10 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock, and the intensity of sunlight is gradually increasing, but the process is at a halt. Saturation state. Saturation state. Now it is observed that at this time, at this state, though the increase of light intensity is still on, the process of photosynthesis is not increasing at all. It has come to a stable state. It is not moving at all. It is not increasing at all with the increase in the light intensity. And at this time, maybe we understand that the carbon dioxide concentration is something around 0.02%. Carbon dioxide concentration may be roughly around 0.02%. I said light intensity increase होने के बावजूद भी why does the process does not increase? But suddenly we see in maybe in half an hour time that yes, the process has again started picking up. The process has again started picking up. And after some time, again reaches a stable state. Now, why does this process pick up? Why did this happen? Because it was not happening for quite a long time. Because if the increasing in light intensity was there, but there was no pickup in the process, the rate of the process was as it is. But after some time, it has been found that yes, the rate of the process must have increased because of the carbon dioxide concentration increasing again to something around 0.04 perhaps. What do we summarize from here? We summarize that in the entire concept of photosynthesis, the primary factors which can regulate the process are carbon dioxide, intensity and temperature. अब ये तीनों में से ज्यादातर एक आध factor अगर not reaching the optimum, the process comes to a stop. And that's the reason these are the factors which are termed as limiting factors. मतलब एक factor अगर appropriate है and दूसरा नहीं है, the process will not run. The process will not run. So that is what we understand here. Then again, next what? Are we now to understand? Maybe now I'm saying that yes, the carbon dioxide concentration is something around 0.04. Now, are we to understand that the carbon dioxide concentration, which is 0.04, and the light intensity is still increasing, and it is almost about 2 or 3 o'clock daytime, and intensity of sunlight is still increasing. Again, the carbon dioxide concentration has become stable, so the process is not running anymore. Light intensity to increase हो रहा है because from 12 o'clock it has become 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock means highest intensity of sunlight on a bright summer day. But carbon dioxide concentration, since it is stable, the process is not running. But gradually we may come across that now the process, if at all, has increased again, and the carbon dioxide concentration has almost reached about 0.05 or 0.06, something like that, approaching almost about 1%. What will happen? After a short increase, it will start dropping down and stopping completely. So what are we trying to understand is, yes, as long as carbon dioxide concentration is increasing and increasing and increasing and touching almost about 0.05, 0.06%, the rate will increase. After that what? क्या ये लगातार ऐसे increase होता ही रहेगा? No, after 0.05, 0.06%, after that, never mind the carbon dioxide concentration is increasing, the process will slowly, gradually come down, slow down, and ultimately stop something nearing 1%. जब carbon dioxide concentration something nearing 1% हो जाएगा, it will stop. Why? Higher percentage of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is considered as a pollutant. It brings about inactivation of a large number of enzymes. It brings about inactivation of large number of enzymes and closure of the stomata. It brings about closure of the stomata, and as a reason the process of photosynthesis will stop. We will continue again with temperature. Let's see. Thank you, ma'am.